Hey everybody, Quantum here with a deck profile video for the Sapphire Emerald Floodborn deck that I posted some gameplay on a little earlier. Again, these deck profile videos to accompany those gameplay videos come out a little early for YouTube members. You can subscribe to that if you would like. It's like $2.99 a month just to show some extra support to the channel, but you don't have to. These will be made public 24 to 48 hours roughly after I create them and post these videos. That being said, let's jump into the deck profile. We've got 44 characters, 13 items, and 3 locations for a perfect 30-30 split on both the Sapphire and Emerald sides. It's kind of funny when you look at this ink pairing over the course of Lorcana's short history so far. It's never really been that viable. But now that Emerald is one of the strongest colors, if not the strongest color in the game, overtaking Steel and Amethyst, I think Emerald can basically work with any other ink pairing since you do have a lot of utility options in this color now, as well as aggro options. So this paired with anything can be viable more or less. So we are revisiting this ink pairing. We play a total of 53 inkables and only 7 non-inkables. So this deck is very accessible. On top of that, we are also playing Fishbone Quill. So I think you can definitely opt to like play around with some ratios. Don't take this as the definitive list, more like a framework or a starting point where you can experiment and build on what you want. You can maybe opt to play more on inkables. You also have access to the ink caster. This is an interesting item. If we just quickly take a look here, that you could run in this deck. It is an uninkable item, but it turns your uninkables into inkables. You draw a card when it's played, so it just replaces itself, and it's an item that you can use with Hierom to banish and draw 2 as well. So I think there's a lot of cool synergy you can use in this deck, but for the most part, I'm just sticking to what I know to be efficient right now. What I will say is like the Great Stone Dragon may not be too applicable in this deck. I've been testing it out, and while I think it is a very powerful card, in this particular deck, it might not have the same level of application as it does in other decks that are running Sapphire. So this could be a card you could cut for a more like cheaper item to use with Hierom. Okay, anyways, let's go ahead and jump straight into the actual cards that we're using here. And let me switch the view so that you can kind of see things a little bit easier. So we're running 4 Pegasus and 4 Bucky. So the traditional Emerald package, it looks like this is the way it is in Ursula's Return right now. In addition to our 1-drops, we're also running 4 Popsicles, so a total of 6 Sapphire and 7 Emerald 1-drops, because we're also opting to run 2 Scepter. This is basically just Hierom fodder, so you could probably sub this out for something else, maybe like an Ice Block. I haven't really had any situation. I've only played like 5 matches with this deck, and I won like 4 of them, I think. And I'm only gonna, and in that gameplay video, I think I showed you like 3, right? So this never really came up at all. But again, just test it, maybe sub it out for a different item, depending on how you want to kind of use things. And then the other 1-drop location that we're using is Hidden Cove. And so I'll go over the concept of this deck in just a second, but I kind of explained it a little bit in the gameplay video. And on the 2-drop curve, we're playing, again, 4 Bucky and 2 Morph, as well as 4 Ursula Deceiver. So this 2-drop package is a total of 10 Emerald cards, as you can see here on the cost curve. Usually you want to do Bucky on turn 2. Ursula Deceiver is more of a strategic card that you want to use. Use it to snipe out like that steel removal spell, the board wipe spell. Mainly be prepared, because that's the only thing that really can like absolutely decimate your board. Grab your swords and stuff can also do significant damage to you, but because you play stuff like Cogsworth and the Hidden Cove to boost up the strength, resist, the defense of your characters, you can mitigate a lot of the steel spells, which is kind of what this deck was kind of geared around when I made it, right? Since steel is still popular, especially Emerald steel. On the 3 cost curve, we're playing 4 Emerald, which makes sense because it's the 4 Diablos here, probably the best card in Emerald now, overtaking Ursula Deceiver of all, and 7 Sapphire cards. And when we take a look here, it is going to be the 3 Great Stone Dragon and then the 4 Fishbone Quills. So on turn 3, either you're going to get some ramp going, or you're going to get your Diablo draw engine going, right? So decent options on turn 3, right? Like Sapphire Steel, Sapphire Ruby always wants to get ramp going. Emerald always wants to get Diablo down now. Now you have the best of both worlds. It's like I can either ramp, which is always good, or I can just draw cards when I drop my Diablo, or make you discard if I have the Bucky, the nice curve out there. So it's kind of the best of both worlds on the 3-drop slot, which is nice. On turn 4, you play 3 Emerald cards, which are the 3 Donald Ducks. This is just another Floodborn, but I don't really know if you want to play this, because between Diablo and Hierom, which is another 4-cost card you play, I don't know if you want to potentially give your opponent the option to draw cards. yes, while you do play the Bucky, like you have to consistently drop Floodborne characters in order to get them to discard. So I'm not sure how I feel about this, but I would like to maybe play another 4-drop card if that's possible. Although technically, because you're not playing one jump aheads, like your 4-cost curve isn't as important. You could maybe just cut these for another higher end Floodborne. Your 5-drop slot is way more important when you play things like Fishbone Quill, because this allows you to skip your 4-drop and go straight to a 5-drop. So on turn 4, you drop a 5-drop card. So you can see here we're very saturated in the 5-drop slot. We play 7 Sapphire and 6 Emerald cards. 2 Crikey. So this is a card that can help board wipe, right? Boost up all of your smaller characters or even some of your bigger ones. Make them huge bodies to just run over whatever threats your opponent has. Pegasus, just a good shift target, and you play morphs, so you have 6 potential shift targets to get this effect off, give your whole board evasive and just aggro out, get a lot of lore. Aurora, which gives Diablo and everything else on your board ward, which is very strong. Although I will say, since Bucky and Cogsworth already have ward, this may not be needed. But what's nice is, preventing your Pegasus, your Hiram from getting Medusa or something like that, or Brawled is very nice. They have to Medusa the Aurora. And then protecting your Tamatoa as well from like Maleficent Dragons and things like that is really nice. So like I said, the only thing that really decimates your board is a Be Prepared. Other than that, you can play around most other of the targeting removal. Cogsworth is definitely the MVP, being a Floodborne, triggering Bucky, and then giving resist to like everything. Again, if you watch this gameplay video, they would like double Cogsworth and stuff, like making your Diablo like have resist and have ward with like the Aurora is just like insane, right? Like there's no way they can touch this card. It has evasive, it has ward, it has resist. It's like what do you do against that, right? Like you have to remove these other threats first, and in the meantime you're drawing a ton of cards with Diablo, you're drawing cards with the Hiram, like it's crazy. And then on the top end, to kind of just have a little bit more board control, you're playing a couple of Hades. You may want to up this to 4, you may want to include some Let It Goes, but there are no songs in this deck, which means it's kind of impervious to the Ursula Deceiver, ripping cards out of your hand. And you play 3 Tamatoas as one of your main closers as well, since you do play a decent item package. But like I said, you can kind of revamp this and make it a little bit more efficient probably. But yeah, like putting these cards on the Cove, right, makes this not be able to be Medusa'd. It makes the Cogsworth obviously can't be Medusa because it has ward, but putting this on the Cove means that the Sisu empowered sibling can't out it because it has 2 strength, so the Sisu would wipe it. Putting the Aurora on here means that they, even though they can target it, they can't ward it, right? They have to deal with the Cove constantly, and that's why you play 3. You may even want to up this to 4, but again, you don't want to risk bricking on these. So yeah, all in all, the deck synergizes kind of well. It is a combo-oriented deck, so it can easily fall apart if you don't kind of see things in like when you need to in order to set up the combo. But that being said, in isolation, these cards are still very strong, right? Like you drop a Bucky, you don't necessarily need to see every little piece on curve, because if you just see Floodborne after Floodborne after Floodborne playing on curve, like you will develop some control over the game with discarding the opponent's hand. If you see Diablo in isolation, it's a 1-card draw engine, right? And you'll likely see Diablo with one of either Aurora, Cogsworth, or Hidden Cove, and depending on the matchup, you can kind of prioritize what you want to get out on field first, right? So maybe you're in a Steel matchup and Cogsworth wins me those games. Maybe you're in a Ruby matchup and you're like, Aurora wins me those games, because you can't Brawl, you can't Medusa or whatever, my Diablo. So depending on the matchup, like you can play the card that you need to set things up, or fish for the card you need. Hiram is like the strongest draw engine in the game, right? So you have that at your disposal. The only thing you do really lack is like Pard removal. So Hades coming in a little bit later, but potentially dropping earlier than turn 7 thanks to ramp is helpful. But yeah, I think this is a good framework. Definitely, I wouldn't say this is the most optimized build, but when it does go off, like if you watch the gameplay video, it's insanely strong, right? Like there's almost nothing that most decks can do to combat this. You basically need to rely on board wipes. Like your opponent needs to rely on like mass board wipes that doesn't target because of like Aurora and stuff in order to overcome your board. That being said though, you can get raced, right? Like aggro decks can race you. I do have a match in here against Emerald Amethyst, but they didn't get a turn 1 Merfolk, and if they don't get that, right, you're likely going to be at a huge advantage. But yeah, if they race you, you could be in a little bit of trouble. But overall, a fun deck list, and something that may end up popping up in the meta here and there as we see the development of Ursula's Return meta. But who knows, right? With Pixelborn going down, there's going to be a dramatic drop-off in content for sure. So this is one of the final videos before that happens. Anyways, guys, if you made it this far in the video, thank you again for watching. Drop a like if you did enjoy. Quantum is out.